Hello everyone, this is Quantilian and welcome to part 2 of creating your first simple stylized character in Nomad Sculpt. In this part I would cover lighting and setting up a scene in order to render and make your model ready to be either published or added to your portfolio. Just recap, in the previous part I've covered the creation of the body, the addition of the mouth, the addition of these teeth, arms and legs. In this part I would start with creating a floor. In order to create a floor, we simply go to scene, and underneath scene we have primitive. I will find the plane and I will take it all the way down up until it touches the shoes. I will zoom out again and I will click on this big circle around your gizmo to make it a little bit bigger. Once it's in place, I leave it there. There are different ways of how you could set up your scene. Usually you would have your backdrop, and there are different type of backdrops. So if you want an actual backdrop, I could show you that in another tutorial. In this tutorial I will just create what we call like a wall backdrop, where you could actually see the seam between the two surfaces. Now I have this in place. I would clone it by clicking on clone, which is available in here, and take it all the way up. And the reason I'm cloning it is because I wanted this to be perpendicular. Now I haven't validated any of these. Keep that in mind. It doesn't matter at this stage. I would come back and validate them. Validate means that you are creating an object out of these, which you could start doing your sculpting anyhow. I could start rotating it manually like that, but I want to be an accurate 90. And you have here a rotation tool that moves from 0 degree into 90. So what I'll do, I'll leave it as 90, and this means I am snapping into 90s, and I will take it all the way back and take it all the way up. And what I will do here is I'll just make sure that there is a tiny distance between here and there. I could always go back to camera, change that to orthographic, back to it, and do this and slightly move it upward. And now I have my scene in place. The first thing I would suggest is validating these two surfaces, but I would also add a view, and adding view through the camera that is available here. I zoom in a little bit with 2 fingers, and then I will click on the camera and change the projection back to be perspective. As you can see, I am somewhere deep in the mouth of this cute character. If I snap it, it would allow me to snap to wherever I am, and I want to snap it here. This looks like a good angle, so it's like a front angle facing my character. Of course, if I am designing or rendering these for Instagram, by the way, you need to check my Instagram. I would have my iPad in a portrait mode, but because of the way that I am filming this, I would keep this all landscape, just something to keep in mind. Now, I have the ground or the floor. If I click on it, I can move it up and down. It's touching it, so it's actually creating a place. Or when I apply the ambient occlusion, that would show. And I have the background, so all is in place. Let's just add a view here. So this is my first view. Let's add another view, probably somewhere looking into this character here. I would add that as a view. The camera I like to use is usually 35, but you could use a wider angle, and wider angle tends to be nice with this type of character. So I could change this into 25, and as you can see now, a wider angle, I could add this as a view. Once we have this in place, I'm happy with the material, I'm happy with everything we have in here. I have created my backdrop. I need to play a little bit with the lighting. So there are different type of lighting. If you're using matte cap, which I have explained before, you could do certain type of rendering or certain type of visualization based on the material of the matte cap. So for example, you could find these online and download them. If I use this, it would show me a rendering of the character as it does in toon format, which is something you might like for your own portfolio or your design. If you use something which is weird like this, it would give you this kind of chromatic blue feeling. If you're a fan of slimes, this is a slime. So using matte cap is one good way of showing your design. However, the problem with matte cap is it applies to every material in the scene. How PBR allow you to change the reflection and the roughness of each material. You have a possibility of adding lights, and I will get into that, or I'll get into that in a moment, but I would just like to explain environment. If I click on environment here, you have HDRI, and if you click on this logo of Nomad, you could find here that in the credits, Stefan has given matte caps and HDRIs, with which he has used. So you could check these if you're interested. Coming back to here, what we have is the environment. The one that I'm using now is this Crossroads 1K. Of course, I've experimented with many. I've even tried to create mine at the beginning when Nomad had no lights. I've created mine, and the reason I've created mine is because I thought it would be a good idea to have one light only hitting, as you can see now. So it's a matter of you practicing, but the higher resolution, the HDRI, the better your actual lighting in the scene is. And I want something a little bit dark, not so dark, and it has a little bit of highlights. So I'm using this one here, which is Adam's Place Bridge 2K. I'm sure I've downloaded this from HDRI Haven. Once you're happy with this, what you could do is you set the exposure. So if it's too exposed for you, you could change this from here. And if you would like to do a little bit of rotation, you can do this here, or you could use three fingers on your iPad. Now, I'm happy with the one I have selected, which is this one for now. Let me go to lights. Since we are using lights is underneath environment. If I click on add light, it would add a light, and as you can see, the light appears in the middle and it's facing down. If you want to change that light, you could click on the square of which the color of the light shows, and that would give you options for two different types of light: directional light and spotlight. Keep in mind, directional light is a continuous light with no kind of fading out surrounding. However, spot allow a more bright spots and less fading, or more fading of the light around, so less shadow. You can change the softness for the spot, the cone angle, and the intensity. For the directional, you have the intensity and the color. I would use directional for now, and I will, if you want to be able to move your light, then once you are in the light tool, click on the percentage. So 100, and then if I click again on it, it's somehow deselected. So select it, and I would click on move, and you could start moving your light in the direction you think it is looking good. Why I like to keep this distance between the background, because you see this kind of ambient occlusion that happens in natural rooms. So that's what appears in here. I'll do this for this light, and I feel personally it might be too harsh for my liking. So click again on the shading and go to the light, click again on it, and I could drop the intensity a little bit. So what I'm trying to create here is like this 3 types or 3 light, 3 angle light, which you have a main light and another fill light, and then a light to provide a little bit of a rim light. So I have my first light in place, my main light. Let me add another one, and this one again I want it to be a directional light. So if I click on 100, I can 100%, which is its intensity, I can start moving it around. And if I would like to rotate it, by the way, I just need to remove my rotation snaps, and then I can start moving it around. And I want this to be coming somewhere from here in the opposite direction of the other light. Again, I thought this light was a little bit harsh. This should be even less intense than the one I've already used. So it would be somewhere like here. I think that's okay. It's all based on your experiment and your liking. So let me just double check what I've done here. So if I turn off this light, so this is how our orange character is. This is the second light, which is the fill light. This is the main light, which is coming from this side, and the fill light in here. Let me now add a rim light from behind, and you can only add 3 lights in Nomad Sculpt, so keep that in mind. So this would be my last light. Again, click on the percentage or the intensity of the light in order to be able to move it. I want this to be a spotlight. Why spotlight? Because directional light, as you probably can see, what is happening is it doesn't matter if it's behind this background or if it's front. Nothing is changed. It's the whole direction of the light. However, if I change this by clicking on the color into a spot, you can see that the spot now can actually cast light and allow shadow. So I have my light in place. It's a little bit not where I wanted it to be, so let me bring it to front, move it around. Let me see if it could be somewhere here. It's a matter of you experimenting. I just want a little bit of rim light coming from behind to provide a little bit of breaking it from the background. So I have this rim light in place. I can go back here and even play with the shadow. So if I click shadow, that would remove the shadow. I don't want this harsh shadow to be here. Again, if you're not sure where I am, if you just click on the color palette of the light, and you can see that these are the settings. I want my light here not to have the shadow. I've mentioned this because I just want the impact of it, which is like this rim light coming from this side. I can even give it a little bit of a color. So let's click again on shading, click again on this, and change this into something like blue. I think blue would be interesting. Yeah, blue. I could change the softness, so how soft you want it to be. And I could change a little bit of the cone angle. And the more cone angle is, the bigger the cone angle, the different the light is behaving. And I think that's it. I could change the intensity a little bit, bringing it down. And that would be my lighting setup. Now, I'm happy with everything except the color of my backdrop. So what I do, I'll double click my backdrop. By the way, my lighting is still selected. That's why you see it highlighted. I just want to click on it again and click on it again to make sure that I am out of that tool. Double click on my background. In my background, what I need to do is to change the colors. So I am in matte caps, by the way, keep that in mind. And what I need to do now is to choose a yellow color, or I could choose an orange from here and change this into like a little bit of yellow, like orange yellowy. It's up to you. It's all, as long as you're happy with the design, it doesn't matter. You could experiment with colors, and I think that is very important in turn for you to learn. Now you can see these lights in here because we are in this scene. If you're rendering this, those would not show. I think we've done everything we could for this character now. It's a matter of improving this using the settings available for you from the post-processing. So just to double check, I have my smooth shading on. I like to have my render resolution multiplied by 2, so it is the highest. I like to click on quality, max samples, full resolution, and I want you to see this magical button here, which is ambient occlusion. It's very subtle and very little detail, but you can see how the impact is this on the eyes, and it seems more natural, and I like this. I think I always start even my sculpting with this on. However, if this is too much or too little, you can adjust it. So you have a strength, you have the size, so you can see how the size react. Of course, I need the mouth to be a little bit dark. So if I turn it off, you can see nothing is happening. I'm always looking for a reference within my actual canvas. And as you can see here, my reference is the mouth. So how the mouth behave in a normal situation is that if the mouth is in, it would be darker. And that's for me where I am creating my reference. Now I'm just adding a little bit, not to add too much so it is very dark, and not to leave it a little so it is very shallow. I will take the strength a little bit up until here, and I think I'm done. I could change the environment back by changing my colors, so you could experiment with this if you would like to. Of course, I remember my lighting coming from here, and I just want to push my main lighting from this side a little bit brighter, and this is all in place. Now I can add a depth of field, and double click on my object would set my depth of field to that object. I can zoom in and put it in an angle like this, and I think we are ready to render. There are some other effects that you might find them very interesting. So I am in the post process. What I like about post process is simply you can click and everything you've done has been saved, and you don't need to use the processor power in order for some sculpting to be done, and then bring it back again. One thing I would also like is the bloom. I think bloom somehow gives like this nice effect to the design. I'll decrease the radius, and the threshold is a little bit small, not too small. And by the way, one thing I don't like about my character here, I think black eyes seems very dark in here. So why don't I select them and try to make them blue. Here's a blue, here's no roughness, and force paint. Yeah, a little bit of a darker blue shade, and here's force paint. So it's customizable as long as you wanted it to be. Once you're happy with your design, I can go to File, make sure that I have saved it, and you can see the differences before and after, the materials and the lighting. So let me just show you a quick hint of how this works with no lighting adjustment. So if I go to my scene, which is from here, sorry, if I go to my shading, you would find that I have, this is the main light, this is the other light, fill light, and this is the backlight. And without all of this, you can see that the character is a little bit in the background. Once you're happy with this design and this angle, what you could simply do is export it or render it. Click on File, move all the way down. I've saved it, as you've seen. In here, you have screen, which is the size of the screen, which is I think double 720. You have 180, and I personally prefer 4K because I can always go back and crop it. The problem with 4K is that outside of this, so in here on my desk, there are parts that you don't see in the screen, and they would appear in your render. But again, you might want something like that. When you're happy with this, just click on the arrow up and save your image. Also, you don't need to go to Photoshop in order to post-process this character. You can click on tone mapping here and do some of the contrast, saturation, exposure. You could also play with this kind of vignette impact, so you have the character focused and this corner faded out. You could also apply grain if you want to give it more of an old camera feeling or more of a natural camera, because in normal cameras you would still have a little bit of grain. You can add sharpness, and that would give it too much sharpness if you would like to. It's an amazing app, and thank you for the programmer for it. I think we're done for today, so just let me save. And remember, we've created different scenes, so I can actually move between them. So this is my first, this is my second, and this is my third. I hope you've enjoyed this part of the video. Do not forget to leave a like if you like this video, leave your suggestion or comments, subscribe to the channel, and wait for future videos. Share this with the people who's interested, and I see you soon. This is Quintilian, and bye again.